What if you could walk through chaos and feel nothing but peace inside? Most people don't realize this, but the way we react to others, especially when they try to hurt us, is the clearest reflection of how much power we've given away. Think about that. Every time someone gets under your skin, every time a single word ruins your whole day, it's not really them who's in control. It's your reaction, and that reaction is the key. The world will always test you. People will gossip, criticize, ignore, disrespect, and sometimes try to tear you down just to feel better about their own emptiness. But here's the truth. They don't bother you because of who they are. They bother you because of what you haven't mastered within yourself. Deep down, we all want peace. Not the fake kind where we pretend nothing affects us, but the real kind. The kind that stays even when everything around us is falling apart. And the only way to find that kind of peace is to stop letting people control your emotions like switches they can flip whenever they want. Why does someone else's opinion change your mood? Why do their actions shift your focus? Why do we give away our inner calm to people who don't even deserve our attention? It's because we've never been taught how to own our emotional power. We've been taught how to react, how to defend, how to fight, but not how to remain unmoved. That's where strength begins. This isn't about being numb. It's about being grounded. It's about reaching that point where someone can insult you, ignore you, disappoint you, and instead of exploding, you just smile. Not because you're weak, but because you've grown too strong to be shaken. Because you understand something they don't, that your energy is sacred and your peace is not for sale. You see, anger is loud, but power, true power, is quiet. It doesn't need to prove anything. It just is. The person who remains calm in a storm is always stronger than the one who screams at the wind. But here's where it gets even deeper. Anger isn't always about others. Most of the time, it's about you. It's about the stories you tell yourself, the expectations you've set, the control you think you need over things that were never yours to control in the first place. That's why anger feels so exhausting, because it's a battle not just with them, but with yourself. And that's why this matters, because the more you let go of the need to control people, the freer you become. The more you stop expecting others to act a certain way, the lighter your heart gets. You begin to move differently, speak differently, live differently. You realize that peace isn't something you find out there. It's something you build within. That's the reward. That's why this matters. Imagine being able to walk into any room, deal with any person, face any insult, and still feel in control of your emotions. Imagine not reacting, not overthinking, not breaking down, but just breathing, just observing, just choosing peace over chaos every single time. Because once you master that, once you understand how to stay calm when everything is trying to shake you, there's nothing anyone can take from you anymore. Not your happiness, not your focus, not your strength. This is your power. And the moment you stop letting others control how you feel, you become unstoppable. Stay until the end, and you'll discover the mindset that turns noise into silence, chaos into clarity, and anger into complete emotional freedom. Because the world doesn't need more people who can shout back louder. It needs people who can stand still and never be moved. But how do you actually do it? How do you stay calm when someone disrespects you, when someone lies to you, or when they try to tear you down just to lift themselves up? How do you hold your peace when everything inside you wants to explode? It starts with one powerful truth. No one controls you unless you let them. The trigger is not the enemy. The reaction is. You can't stop people from being rude, but you can stop giving them the satisfaction of seeing you break. The strongest person in the room is never the loudest. It's the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, doesn't fall into the trap. Because that's what anger really is. A trap, a bait. And too many people walk straight into it. You see it everywhere. One insult and they lose control. One bad comment and they carry it for days. But here's what they don't realize. Every time you react in anger, you hand over your power. You say, without even knowing it, you control me. Your behavior decides how I feel. And that's exactly what keeps people stuck, living on edge, always waiting for someone to offend them, always trying to manage everyone else just to protect their own peace. But real strength doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself, from knowing that you are not your reaction. You are not your emotion. You are the observer, the decider, the one who chooses the response. It's not easy, because your mind will try to defend you. Your ego will whisper you can't let them get away with that. But the ego is fragile. It feeds on fear. It wants validation. And when you listen to it, you become a slave to every opinion, every insult, every glance. The path to real power starts when you silence that voice and listen to the stronger one inside, the one that says, you don't need to react, you're above this. That voice is always there. It's the one that feels calm when you breathe deeply. It's the one that reminds you of your worth when others try to shake it. It's the one that knows the truth. Your peace isn't found in other people behaving right. It's found in you deciding what deserves your energy and what doesn't. The mind is wired to react fast. It's survival. But growth begins when you create space. That tiny space between what happens and how you respond. That's where your freedom lives. That space is everything. That's where you rise above your patterns, above your triggers, above the chaos. And you can train it. Every time you pause, every time you take a breath instead of a bite, you're not just resisting anger. You're rewiring your mind. You're telling your nervous system, we don't panic here anymore. We don't lose control here anymore. We don't give our power away anymore. This is how leaders are made, not by dominance, but by discipline. Not by silencing others, but by silencing the noise inside. Because when you stop reacting, you start thinking, you start choosing, you start acting from clarity, not emotion. And that changes everything. You speak with intention, you walk with purpose, you live with power. So the next time someone tests you, don't see it as an attack. See it as an invitation to grow, to rise, to show yourself what you're really made of. Let their words pass through you. Let their drama stay with them. You don't need to carry it. You don't need to answer to it. You don't need to lower yourself to meet their level. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to understand yourself. And the more you do, the less anything outside of you can bother you. Because peace isn't pretending you're okay. It's knowing that no matter what comes your way, you will stay okay. That's the mindset that makes you untouchable. Not because you're emotionless, but because you've learned to master emotion. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And every time you choose to stay calm instead of lashing out, every time you choose stillness over reaction, you're building that strength, quietly, powerfully, unshakably. You become the one who doesn't just walk through the storm. You become the storm, calm, focused, unmoved. And when that happens, no one can take your peace again, because it's not something you borrowed from the world. It's something you built from within. That inner strength, the calm that doesn't crack, isn't something you're born with. It's something you forge. And the forge is detachment. Emotional detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It means you no longer take everything personally. You no longer need to chase validation, approval, or agreement to feel whole. You begin to understand something most people never realize. Not everything needs your attention. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every opinion is worth your peace. This is where your power multiplies. When you're no longer reacting to every small thing, you finally have space to focus on what actually matters. Your goals, your growth, your inner peace. When you're emotionally detached, you're not careless, you're intentional. You don't shut off emotion. You just stop letting emotion run your life. Detachment is not escape. It's elevation. You rise above the noise instead of drowning in it. You stop playing the game where someone else pushes a button and you jump. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop letting temporary people create permanent damage inside your mind. It's about knowing who you are so clearly that outside voices lose their power. When someone insults you, you don't crumble. You smile not out of arrogance, but out of understanding. Because you finally get it, what they say reflects them, not you. Their bitterness isn't yours to carry. Their disrespect isn't a mirror, it's a projection. The person who walks away instead of arguing isn't weak, they're wise. They've realized that some battles are distractions, that some people don't want peace, they want reaction. And once you stop giving them that, they lose control. Because they never had power over you. They only had the power you gave them. This kind of detachment brings freedom. You're no longer controlled by your past. You're no longer haunted by who didn't believe in you, who left you, who didn't treat you right. You stop clinging to what you can't change, and you stop bleeding energy into things you were never meant to fix. You finally see that holding on doesn't make you strong, letting go does. You begin to move like a mountain, still, strong, unmoved by storms. People may talk, push, criticize, but you don't shake. You've built something deeper, a sense of self that doesn't need noise to feel alive, a heart that doesn't need revenge to feel right, a soul that doesn't need chaos to feel seen. When you detach, you make space for wisdom. You stop reacting from ego and start responding from purpose. You become intentional with your time, your energy, your peace. You realize how expensive it is to let someone's attitude ruin your mindset. You stop letting 5-second moments ruin entire days. And you start seeing your triggers for what they really are, not signs of weakness, but signs of what still needs healing. You lean into the discomfort. You look it in the eye. And instead of reacting, you reflect. You ask yourself, why does this still bother me? What belief is being challenged here? That kind of awareness, moment to moment, is how detachment becomes your superpower. You learn to observe your emotions without becoming them. You learn to sit in silence without needing noise. You learn to feel deeply but act wisely. And that changes how you show up in every part of life. You no longer try to prove your worth. You live it. You no longer need to be seen. You're comfortable being unseen, unbothered, and deeply rooted in who you are. Because when your value isn't dependent on anyone else's opinion, you become untouchable. That's what emotional detachment builds. A quiet kind of confidence, a self-trust that doesn't need defense, a peace that doesn't shake under pressure. This isn't about becoming a rock. It's about becoming grounded, rooted in truth, not noise, anchored in purpose, not reaction. That's how you stop being moved by every wave. That's how you stop being pulled into storms that were never meant for you. And the beauty of this mindset is that the more you practice it, the stronger it gets. Detachment doesn't make you less human. It makes you more powerful. Because in a world that's constantly trying to pull your attention, your anger, your energy, being able to pause, breathe, and not respond is a rare kind of strength. When you master this, you don't just change how you feel. You change how people feel around you. Your calm becomes contagious. Your peace becomes magnetic. And your life starts flowing in ways it never could when you were caught in constant reaction. You stop being a slave to the world. You become the architect of your own experience. And nothing, no one, no situation, no matter how loud, can pull you out of alignment. Because you've finally realized peace isn't something you look for. It's something you protect. Protecting your peace doesn't mean hiding from the world. It means standing in the middle of it, loud, chaotic, unpredictable, and staying rooted in who you are. It means building a mental fortress that keeps the storms outside from reaching the silence inside. Because when your mind is untrained, everything gets in. Every look, every word, every little shift in someone's tone becomes a reason to spiral. But when your mind is disciplined, you stop absorbing everything. You start filtering. You start choosing what enters your space. This is the shift that changes your life. You stop being available to every drama, every distraction, every emotional trap. You start living with intention. You start choosing your peace like it's your highest priority, because it is. Without peace, even success feels empty. Without peace, even love feels unstable. Without peace, your mind becomes a battlefield you carry everywhere you go. And most people are walking around exactly like that. Exhausted, overstimulated, carrying the weight of things they should have let go of years ago. They think they need to fight every fight, win every argument, fix every misunderstanding. But that's not strength. That's insecurity wearing the mask of control. True strength is knowing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. When you stop chasing reactions, you start gaining respect. Not the kind of respect that's loud and flashy, but the kind that runs deep. The kind that comes from presence, from self-command, from a calm so powerful it makes people pause before they cross your boundaries, because they can feel it. You don't play with your peace. You protect it like your life depends on it, and it does. Your energy is your currency. Spend it wisely. Not everyone deserves access. Not every opinion needs to be heard. Not every situation needs your voice. There's power in silence. There's clarity in stepping back. And there's freedom in letting go of things that only bring noise, not growth. The people who live with peace don't have easier lives. They've just learned to stop wasting their power on things they can't control. They've trained their minds to stay calm when others lose theirs. They've mastered the pause, that split second where emotion wants to explode, but discipline steps in. That moment when your old self would react, but your new self stays still. That's the work. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens every day, in small decisions, in tiny pauses, in quiet victories no one sees. You choose not to argue. You choose not to explain yourself to someone who's already decided who you are. You choose not to chase the last word, because you don't need it anymore. You're not in competition with noise. You're in alignment with peace. And alignment feels better than attention. It lasts longer than anger. It carries more weight than reaction. Because when you're aligned, you don't just feel better, you become better. You show up with more clarity. You act with more intention. You walk away when it's time. You speak only when necessary. And your silence says more than your words ever could. This is how you build an unshakable mindset, one decision at a time. You rewire your habits. You train your focus. You take control of your breathing when emotions rise, and every time you do, you reinforce the truth. You are not a prisoner of what happens around you. You are the master of what happens within you. People will still test you. Life will still bring pressure, but you'll respond differently. Not because life changed, but because you did. And once you shift internally, the external world loses its grip. You're no longer living in reaction, you're living in intention. This is your evolution. The moment you stop being emotionally available to every little offense, the moment you stop leaking energy into things that don't grow you, the moment you reclaim your inner space and guard it like your peace depends on it. Because the truth is, every time you stay calm when you could have exploded, you're not just keeping the peace, you're becoming it. And in a world that feeds on chaos, that is the ultimate power. Not to fight harder, but to feel deeper and still not be moved. When you become the peace you used to search for, the world no longer has the same grip on you. You don't need circumstances to be perfect to feel calm. You don't need people to behave a certain way to feel steady, because you've built something inside that doesn't shake every time the outside world shifts. That's real freedom. Not being untouched by life, but being unbroken by it. Not needing everything to go right, just needing yourself to stay right within. This is where self-respect grows, not in loud declarations, but in quiet control, in walking away from chaos without guilt, in choosing silence not because you're afraid to speak, but because you've mastered the power of not needing to. You no longer argue just to be heard. You listen to yourself instead. You no longer explain your worth. You embody it. People might call it cold. They might say you've changed. And they're right. You have. You've stopped being emotionally open to those who only came to drain you. You've stopped being available for conversations that go in circles. You've stopped investing in emotional currency that never pays you back. Because now you see your value. You feel your power. And you're done letting it be handled carelessly. There's a certain weight to this calm. It's not emptiness, it's depth. It comes from pain you've faced and healed, from storms you've survived without anyone knowing, from silent battles where you learn to breathe through the fire instead of becoming it. And now that peace lives in your bones, it speaks for you before you open your mouth. It shows in how you respond to life, not in panic but in presence. You stop needing to win arguments. You'd rather win peace of mind. You stop seeking justice in every misunderstanding. You'd rather preserve your inner balance. You start choosing yourself, not out of ego, but out of wisdom. Because now you know you can't be everything for everyone and still be something for yourself. That shift, that decision to protect your space, is where everything begins to change. You create distance from drama. You set boundaries without guilt. You respond slower. You think deeper. You breathe before you speak. And you feel powerful not because you control others, but because you finally control yourself. That's what most people miss. They think control is about dominating situations, but real control is mastering your response. Being able to sit in discomfort and still move with clarity. Being able to feel anger rise and still choose patience. Being able to feel disrespected and still walk away without making it personal. That's not weakness, that's strength in its highest form. Because it means your emotions no longer lead. You do. You use them, but they don't use you. You feel them, but they don't drive you. And in that space where you choose presence over reaction, you unlock a version of yourself that nothing can break. Not criticism, not rejection, not chaos, because you've realized those things aren't reflections of your worth. They're reflections of the world. And the world is loud, unstable, unpredictable. But you don't have to match it. You're not here to blend in with noise. You're here to move differently, to respond differently, to live from a center so strong that nothing can throw you off balance unless you let it. This is a different kind of life, one where peace is your priority, where your nervous system is no longer held hostage by people's words or actions, where you take your time, protect your energy, and let silence speak louder than anger ever could, because you've grown. And growth doesn't always look like doing more. Sometimes it looks like letting go. Sometimes it looks like not reacting. Sometimes it looks like smiling when you would have shouted, breathing when you would have broken, walking when you would have warred. And that version of you, the one who moves with grace under pressure, who stays calm in chaos, who holds peace like a sword, is the most powerful version there is, because no one can shake someone who is already grounded. No one can control someone who is no longer reactive, and no one can pull down someone who's risen above the noise. That's your edge now. Not your ability to shout louder, argue smarter, or fight harder, but your ability to remain centered, to move through fire and not become the flame, to live in a world that's always reaching for your attention and still choose your inner stillness instead. That kind of strength can't be taught in words. It's built through experience, through pain that turned into wisdom, through disappointment that sharpened your focus, through every moment you wanted to explode but didn't, every time you walked away, stronger, calmer, better. And the more you practice this, the more it becomes your nature. Not forced, not faked, just who you are. Calm, grounded, focused, unbothered. Not because life is easy, but because you've chosen to stop making it harder by reacting to everything. You've chosen peace, and that choice, every single day, is how you win. The moment you stop chasing control is the moment you find peace, because it's never really about the people who upset you. It's about the power you've given them over your emotional state. And the truth is, no one can take your peace unless you hand it to them. The problem is, we've been taught to react. We've been trained to defend, to explain, to fight back. But that conditioning is what keeps us trapped in the same emotional patterns day after day, year after year. You don't owe anyone access to your inner world. Not every message deserves a reply. Not every slight deserves a reaction. When someone tries to trigger you, they're offering you a role in their story, a story filled with blame, chaos, projection. You don't have to accept that role. You don't have to step into that energy. You can choose to stay rooted in yours. You can choose to stay free. This kind of emotional discipline isn't natural at first. It takes practice. It takes patience. It takes radical honesty with yourself. Because peace isn't passive. It's an active decision, a daily discipline. You don't become calm by accident. You build it through conscious repetition, through self-awareness that interrupts the old cycle, through restraint that feels unnatural but leads to liberation. The ego will always want to be right. It will always want the last word. It will always want to teach someone a lesson. But your highest self doesn't care about winning arguments. It cares about maintaining alignment. It cares about growth. It cares about conserving energy for things that truly matter. And when you start choosing that path, you feel a shift inside. Less chaos, less noise, less regret. You stop waking up with emotional hangovers from battles that never needed to be fought. You stop carrying the energy of other people's problems. You stop identifying with every offense, every tone, every look. And in that space of detachment, you find clarity. You start to see what actually matters. And most of the time, It's not what you thought. Peace comes when you finally realize you don't have to match other people's dysfunction with your own. You don't have to mirror the energy that tries to provoke you. Just because someone is angry doesn't mean you have to meet them there. Just because someone throws shade doesn't mean you have to block the sun. You are allowed to rise above. You are allowed to not engage. You are allowed to walk away, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. And let this be the moment you stop apologizing for protecting your peace, for choosing silence over conflict, stillness over drama, presence over panic. That's not avoidance. That's evolution. That's you no longer needing chaos to feel alive. That's you learning how to self-regulate, self-respect, self-honor. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You just need to be at peace with yourself. It's easy to react. It's easy to let someone's energy pull you into a place you've outgrown. But growth requires restraint. It requires you to notice the old trigger, but choose a new response. To feel the heat rise, but stay cool anyway. To hear the criticism, but not take it personally. Because how people treat you is their karma. How you respond is yours. You'll be tested. That's inevitable. But those tests are not setbacks. They're invitations to level up, to apply what you've learned, to embody who you've become. Every moment of tension is a mirror, showing you where you still have work to do, and offering you the chance to rise above what once pulled you down. And when you do, when you pass those tests with grace instead of fire, you begin to trust yourself more. You begin to walk through life with a quiet confidence, a strength that doesn't need to announce itself, a presence that doesn't need validation. You just are, calm, steady, powerful in your restraint. That's where the real transformation lives. People will notice, not because you've changed your appearance or made a loud declaration, but because your energy feels different, lighter, stronger, more grounded. You no longer flinch at the things that used to shake you. You no longer seek closure from people who were never meant to understand you. You close your own chapters now. You heal in silence. You move with intention. This is the life you've been building. A life where your emotional world is not dictated by the outside world. A life where you wake up with clarity, not confusion, with purpose, not panic. A life where you respond with grace, not because you're pretending, but because you've done the inner work to be that way. And that work is worth it. Because nothing feels better than being in full control of your own energy. Nothing is more liberating than walking through chaos and not becoming it. That is your superpower now. Not to control the world, but to no longer let it control you. When your peace is no longer negotiable, your life starts to align. The noise gets quieter. The people who thrived on triggering you start to fade. The weight you carried begins to lift. Because the chaos outside loses its power when you stop feeding it from within. You begin to notice how much of your suffering wasn't caused by what happened, but by how you kept replaying it in your mind. You were holding on to things that didn't deserve to stay, and now you're finally learning to let go. Letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's realizing that holding on to anger, resentment, or needing to be right only burns you. You thought you were protecting your pride, but you were just poisoning your peace. Every grudge, every argument, every emotional wound you kept reopening was costing you energy, time, clarity, and now you see the price. You're done paying for what you didn't break. You're done carrying what was never yours to fix. This isn't about ignoring pain, it's about transmuting it, turning your hurt into healing, your triggers into teachers, your scars into strength, because nothing changes until you change. Not the world, not the people, just you. And when you change your relationship with your emotions, when you stop letting them control your actions, you stop being a victim of circumstance. You start being the creator of your own reality. That's the true meaning of emotional freedom. Not being numb, not being passive, but being powerful enough to choose your response no matter what the situation. You stop reacting from wounds and start responding from wisdom. You don't suppress your feelings. You face them, understand them, and then decide how to move forward from a place of strength. The people who used to manipulate you with guilt, anger, or silence, they lose their grip. Because you're no longer trying to please everyone. You're no longer sacrificing your sanity for approval. You're no longer bending your truth to avoid conflict. You've found your center, and now you protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. Your peace is your foundation, and everything you build will reflect its strength. Relationships, work, health, mindset, it all starts with how calm you are inside. When you're grounded, you make better decisions. You speak more clearly, you love more deeply, you live more intentionally. And people can feel that. Your presence becomes a sanctuary. Your energy becomes healing, not because life is perfect, but because you have become unshakable. This is the version of you that no longer needs permission to rest, to walk away, to say no. You've stopped explaining your boundaries, you simply live them. You've stopped proving your worth, you simply embody it. That's power. Quiet, steady, unbothered power. The kind that doesn't need to raise its voice to be heard. You realize now that everything you were searching for, respect, love, peace, starts within. It was never about changing the world around you. It was about changing the way you show up in it. And the more you shift inward, the more the world shifts in your favor. The situations that used to overwhelm you no longer steal your breath. The words that used to cut you deep now bounce off the strength you've built inside. And it's not because life has stopped being hard. It's because you have stopped being soft in the places you used to bleed. You've stopped letting small minds occupy big spaces in your heart. You've stopped letting temporary people leave permanent damage. You've learned how to feel fully, without falling apart. How to care deeply, without losing yourself. You're not cold. You're focused. You're not distant. You're disciplined. You're not emotionless. You're emotionally intelligent. You know when to speak and when to stay silent. When to stay and when to walk, when to forgive and when to let go. That's the kind of clarity that creates real freedom. And in that freedom, you begin to rise, quietly, powerfully, unapologetically, not by forcing change, but by becoming the change. You don't have to convince anyone anymore. You don't have to argue your value. You don't have to prove your strength. It shows in how you carry yourself, in how you respond, in how little the chaos outside affects the calm inside. This is what emotional mastery looks like. It's not perfect. It's not always pretty, but it's real, it's raw, it's powerful, because it's built on truth, not ego, on awareness, not reaction, on presence, not performance. And once you step into it, there's no going back. You can't unsee your growth. You can't unlearn your strength. You can't unfeel your peace. You've earned this through every breakdown that didn't break you, through every moment you held your tongue when you could have lashed out, through every time you chose your evolution over your ego. This is your reward, this peace, this clarity, this strength, and it's only the beginning.